In 1930, an entire village went to sleep. By morning, it was gone. No bodies, no signs of violence, no official explanation. Houses were still standing. Food was left behind. Fires had burned out naturally. Whatever happened that night was never supposed to be explained. But this story survived, and today you're going to hear it. This is the story of a remote settlement near Angikuni Lake in northern Canada, a place so isolated, most maps barely acknowledged it existed. The people living there were Inuit hunters. They survived harsh winters, endless darkness, and one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. They knew this land, which is why what happened next made absolutely no sense. One evening in November 1930, a fur trapper named Joe LaBelle arrived at the village. He expected warmth, voices, movement. Instead, silence. He entered one of the huts. The fire had gone out recently. Food was still on the table. Beds looked as if people had risen from them and simply never returned. No footprints leading away. No signs of struggle, just absence. As LaBelle explored further, the situation became even more disturbing. Sled dogs had been left behind. According to reports, they were found dead from starvation. Experienced hunters would never abandon their dogs. Never. Even more unsettling, some accounts claimed the village cemetery had been disturbed. Graves opened, empty. At this point, panic set in. The Canadian authorities were alerted. Search teams were sent into the area. They found no survivors, no remains, no explanation. The official conclusion: there was no conclusion. No written record of an evacuation. No evidence of an attack. No natural disaster. The village had simply vanished. As news of the disappearance spread, speculation began almost immediately. The first theory was simple: migration. Some believed the villagers had decided to leave the area suddenly, perhaps following wildlife or escaping an unseen threat. But this explanation raised more questions than answers. Why leave behind food? Why abandon shelter in the middle of winter? And most importantly, why leave the sled dogs for Inuit hunters? Dogs were not just animals, they were survival itself. Leaving them behind would have been unthinkable. Another theory suggested disease, a sudden outbreak, something fast, something deadly. Supporters of this idea believed the villagers may have fled in panic, afraid of contamination. But again, there were no bodies, no mass graves, no signs of illness ever reported in nearby regions. If disease was the cause, it left no trace. Then came the more unsettling explanations. Several accounts claimed strange lights had been seen in the sky around the time of the disappearance. Bright flashes, silent movements, lights that did not behave like aircraft. These reports were never officially confirmed, but they were never fully dismissed either. Was it coincidence or something far stranger? Some believed the explanation was human, a forced relocation, a secret government operation, a decision made without records. Northern regions were poorly documented at the time, and many believed it would have been easy to erase an entire event from history. If that was true, then the silence itself was the evidence. And then there were those who believed the truth was far older. Ancient legends, warnings passed down through generations. Stories of places where humans were not welcome, places that demanded silence or disappearance. Whether myth or memory, these stories suddenly felt uncomfortably relevant. With no answers, theories continued to multiply, each one more disturbing than the last. And the longer the mystery remained unsolved, the more powerful it became. As the years passed, the mystery refused to fade. Researchers, writers, and skeptics returned to the story again and again, each convinced they were the one who could finally explain it. Some argued that the entire event was the result of misunderstanding, that the village never disappeared at all, but slowly relocated over time. But critics pushed back. They pointed out that relocation does not happen in silence. It leaves records, footprints, witnesses. None of those existed. Others believed the truth was deliberately buried. Northern Canada in the early 20th century was vast, remote, and largely undocumented. Entire events could disappear simply by not being written down. If someone wanted this story forgotten, it would not have been difficult. And then there were the psychological explanations. That fear itself played a role. That isolation, darkness, and extreme cold can distort memory and perception. In places like Angikuni Lake, stories do not just describe reality, they become it. And once a story takes hold, it can be impossible to separate fact from belief. Here's where the story takes a turn. Decades later, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police stated they found no official evidence that such a mass disappearance ever occurred. No verified reports, no confirmed investigation. Some researchers now believe the Angikuni Lake story may have been exaggerated or even fabricated. A mystery built from fragments of truth. So, what really happened? Did an entire village vanish overnight? Or did a powerful story grow larger than reality itself? Sometimes, the most unsettling mysteries aren't about what disappeared, but about what we choose to believe. And some stories refuse to stay buried.